Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Sunday morning to you all. Hope you guys are doing well out there, feeling fantastic, and having a great start to your day. And a great weekend out there so far. I appreciate you folks joining me this morning as we try to figure out what's going to happen weather-wise for your Sunday. Expecting some severe weather again. It's already kind of active out there this morning like it has been the last several mornings. This is no different today. And we have a level 3 out of 5 risk now, which is uptrended from what they were expecting yesterday. So we had a slight risk for today, yesterday. Now we have that enhanced risk, which is that level 3 out of 5. So I just want to let you guys know it's another tricky forecast. The models are going to struggle. They're going to battle one another to see who's right. And I'm happy that yesterday morning I actually showed you a model I hardly ever show you guys, which is the FV3 model. There's a couple other models like the RAP model, RAP. There's a couple other models that are pretty good also, but all of them miss and all of them hit. And it's just like picking which one to really stick with. And, you know, if we showed you all 5, 6, 7 of them, the video would go on for like an hour and a half. So we have to just give our best guess at this. And that's what we're going to do again in this video. We'll compare some model guidance, especially for that enhanced risk area today, which is in, you know, portions of the Mississippi Valley, the Mid-South region. So we'll talk about that. We'll break down the rest of the country. And then at the very end of the video, we'll talk about what's to come. And unfortunately, we're expecting more active weather, but the good news is it's in a different location. The same areas aren't going to get hit again and again, but there's a chance as we get later into next week that some of the same areas that's been impacted over the last several days could begin to be under the gun again. So we'll break that down for you folks as the confidence increases. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. I've been struggling to talk this morning. Had to restart this video over about 10 times. So we're going to try to work our way through this video the best we can. The video yesterday morning hit 20,000 views. It's incredible. It really is. First day of July popping off strong. So thank y'all for any new people who are viewing and just the people who have always viewed. So thank y'all so much for the support. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below so I can do that. I can pray over them. And then I promise you other people will pray over your prayer request also. Let's get rolling. Let's look at the water vapor loop. We don't have the clicker up this morning. The ridge is beginning to flatten out. We have this shortwave trough over areas of Iowa, Missouri, beginning to move into areas of Illinois as we work into the next several hours. Along it, you have a cold front. And along that cold front and just east of it, you're going to have more storm development throughout the day, and even more storm development even in Illinois potentially a little bit later this afternoon. But you can see a little bit of dry air getting worked in around this little shortwave trough, this little weak low pressure, if you will. And then where you see kind of the grayer, whiter colors, that's where there's more moisture in the atmosphere. It's much more humid in these areas. And the really white colors you see on your screen, that is where you actually have rain falling for the most part, and then storm development. As you can tell, up here it doesn't look quite as white, but there is rain falling in the northeast this morning. So this doesn't always indicate what's falling at the surface. I'll actually show you what's falling at the surface here in a second. But this is what's going on. I expect this area of the country to become more active over the next several days, and we'll talk about that here in the next video or so. I will try to have a video out this evening, kind of talking about what's to come later this week, as I'm expecting another active week of severe weather. But this is what's going on. If we actually look at what's falling at the surface, precipitation-wise, storm-wise, you do have an area of storms, showers and storms working its way through North Dakota right now. An area of more just moderate to heavy rain kind of consolidated in one area here in southern and southwest sections of Texas. You got more storms, another mesoscale convective system working its way through Kentucky this morning. You know, you guys have just had round after round of storms. We even had some nasty storms that worked their way into the Carolinas yesterday. In fact, one storm in the upstate of South Carolina produced a good bit of damage. A guy I know up there filmed the damage in and around the Pickens area, I believe, had a good bit of damage. So more of just a moderate rain falling up in the northeast. Any rain up here is needed. Will be taken because it improves the air quality. And I mean, it can get quite dry, and any geographical location in the lower 48 any time of the year, especially when it's really hot. You get temperatures in the mid to upper 90s for like 7-8 days straight with no rain. Even though you might have had a ton of rain the days prior to that streak, things dry out really quick. So We got this spin right into here. You can actually see it kind of turning. So you got rain falling in southeast Iowa and northern Illinois. The models handled that pretty well in yesterday's video when we talked about that. Let's talk about the Storm Prediction Center. We do have an enhanced risk. If you're my kids in the background, it's just a Sunday morning. We're getting ready for church, things like that. So enhanced risk here in the orange. So that's a level 3 out of 5. So Kentucky, northern Tennessee, you guys, and this does include Nashville, up to Louisville, everybody in between, Lexington, Kentucky. Okay, these areas will be under the gun. Basically has the highest confidence to see severe weather today. Storms will be much more widespread in this area. And even though you're already dealing with storms this morning, you're going to have more that form later this morning into the afternoon and evening hours. But you kind of have this weird dip over West Virginia, western areas of Maryland, and then areas of Virginia. But, this might connect in later updates. We'll see what happens. And just a quick reminder that things could change. Another update from the Storm Prediction Center comes out in another 2 hours. So we'll see if this changes, drops, increases. We'll see what happens, broadens. But you got a slight risk that does extend from Little Rock, Arkansas, all the way up to Philadelphia, the Delmarva region, Washington, D.C., Baltimore, all the way down to Charlotte, Raleigh, upstate portions of South Carolina, North Georgia, northern Alabama, northern Mississippi. Tornado risk today, another low risk day, just a 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. There'll be a little bit of shear, a little bit of winds aloft that could rotate some of these thunderstorms in Kentucky, areas of the Ohio Valley, down into Tennessee. Almost all of Tennessee does have that 2% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in any given location. The wind threat, no hatch threat, but this 30% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher, that's 55 to 60 miles per hour and mile per hour readings, is what's driving that enhanced risk. So you do have a 30% risk of potentially damaging winds, and in most cases 55 to 60 mile per hour wind gust can be damaging, depending on if you got any loose items in the yard, whatever it may be. But you also got the 15% risk of the same criteria, those 55 to 60 mile per hour winds in the yellow area, which does include some higher populated areas, especially as you get up here into the mid-Atlantic. So we watch out for that. Hail threat, there's a 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger in this yellow area. So we'll watch for hail with these storms in pretty much all of Tennessee, areas of the Mid-South, and then portions of the Ohio Valley. So that's the Storm Prediction Center. The excessive rainfall outlook, you have a slight risk of excessive rainfall, which means there's at least a 15% risk of flash flood guidance being met within 25 miles in any given location. There's a lot of rain falling up in the Northeast right now. You will continue to get rain throughout the day and overnight hours. So be careful for any flash flooding in this risk. This one storyline that I haven't seen much on is flash flooding. That's good. We had the awful flooding in eastern Kentucky last summer, but I haven't seen a whole lot with flash flooding. So might be wrong. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but haven't seen any crazy videos or anything like that on social media. Heat advisories pretty much take over the entire southeast, the deep south. It takes a high criteria of heat to issue an excessive heat warning in areas of like the Midlands of South Carolina. We're like in a bowl here between the mountains and the ocean. Typically, it's very hot and humid in this area of the country. Of course, you guys in Texas, Arkansas, Louisiana, Oklahoma certainly have us beat this year in the heat criteria. But, you guys are getting a little bit of a break. It's still hot, but definitely nothing compared to what you guys have seen. But heat advisories across all of Mississippi, all of Alabama, almost pretty much all of Georgia, except the higher elevations, all of South Carolina, almost except the coastal regions where the criteria for heat is a little bit higher, North Georgia and areas of the Piedmont and eastern areas of North Carolina where heat indices feels like temperatures will likely get over 100 degrees by mid-afternoon. We'll take a broad look at the HRRR model of what could happen today. We have that cluster of showers and storms in Kentucky this morning. This will try to trail off into West Virginia later in the morning. We'll see how that behaves. Is it more intense in Virginia than what this is showing? We're not quite sure, but what we do know is you're going to have widespread strong to severe storms that do develop potentially, as far west as central Arkansas, all the way through western areas of Tennessee, Kentucky. You've got some intense storms, and this is where the more consolidated area of storms do get going here in southern Indiana, southern Illinois, the Boot Heel, Missouri, Kentucky, and then they begin to fly across the region. You cannot ignore these storms. We had a lot more widespread activity in Georgia and Alabama yesterday than what most models indicated, but that FV3 model, that short-range model, nailed it. It did. It showed it, and it did well with the storms in North Carolina. We had a pretty intense line of storms move through the sandhills of North Carolina yesterday evening. In fact, we had a tornado warning issued. But you keep this going, you could have pop-up storms down here in the deep south also, and these continue to work their way overnight, and you could have another stormy night for sure in areas of the southern Alps region, places like that. But these models are going to struggle. So we'll start out in Arkansas and surrounding states. We'll look at this first. As we work our way into the 1 to 2 p.m. range, if you're confused about what time frame we're at, look right here. We're in Central Time right now, but this is in Eastern Time. I can't fix that. It's just the way it is here on Weatherbell. But back this up 1 hour, 1 p.m. You got some storms developing here in northeast and northern Arkansas, the Boot Hill, Missouri. These could immediately go severe, so you watch for these. It could turn into a little bit of a line of storms. Watch up here near, was it Jonesboro? Fayetteville's over here. Almost said Fayetteville, but watch out for these areas into this region. You could have some nasty storms. The Paducah area again. These could move into western areas of Tennessee as we make our way into the later afternoon hours. And then you might have some more pop-up showers and storms in Tennessee. We'll talk about Tennessee here in a second. But you cannot ignore what could potentially happen in Louisiana, Mississippi. You could have some pop-up stronger storms. Some of these could reach severe limits. This is around 7 p.m. And you can tell kind of the complex nature of this forecast. I mean, this is more so a summer flow. Okay, there's really pop-up in nature. You'll probably look at your phone apps and it says there's a 20 to 30% chance of storms in these regions, maybe a 40% risk. But, you might not get a drop of rain. You might get a severe storm that could produce damage. So, be careful in this region right down here for sure. And then as you lose the daytime heating, you might get another area of storms that gets going tomorrow morning here in northern Mississippi and Alabama. But I can tell you the models are definitely struggling with that kind of stuff. You look at the NAM. They're struggling with morning initiation. I can tell you that. You look at the NAM, what can happen today? We get into the afternoon hours. Not a whole lot different. Not near as widespread. It does show some shower activity in central and southern Arkansas, northern Mississippi. Some storms are possible in western areas of Tennessee as you get around the 7 to 8 to 9 p.m. time frame. But definitely, not as widespread. But you look at this model right here that, I'm probably going to start showing a little bit more because I'm going to start to see how it acts. But look how different this model is. Okay, I'm backing it up all the way till right now, Sunday morning. But look as we get into Sunday afternoon. And this is why I'm showing this, because it's so much different. You got a lot more storm initiation all the way. I mean, you got storms right here in North Texas, southeast Oklahoma, Arkansas, northern Louisiana. This is around 3-4 p.m. A lot of storm development in Mississippi, central Mississippi, northern Mississippi, Alabama, central Alabama. You got some big time storms right here where Missouri, Kentucky, Illinois, and Tennessee sort of get close to one another. And I mean, you take it to about the late afternoon hours. I mean, you got widespread storm action going on in all the deep south states. Okay, so it's totally different than the NAM and the HRRR model. So once again, it'll be the FV3 model versus the NAM and the HRRR model, which are pretty similar in nature. So we watch this and we got to see what happens because I can tell you this model, totally different. We go on to look at the southern Alps region, which pretty much includes that entire enhanced and slight risk area, but we will move into the mid-Atlantic here in a second. But the models, HRRR model is indicating that area showers and storms in Kentucky. These will continue to kind of trail off into West Virginia. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see how much this holds together as we get to around the lunchtime and the lunchtime time frame in West Virginia. If you're late morning, lunchtime region, watch for, this area of showers and storms. I'm not sure how intense it'll still remain as it does enter the West Virginia area. But if you are in West Virginia, do know that you guys could certainly see some more rain here in the next several hours for sure. But you keep this going here. What kind of storm action do we have as we get into the early to mid-afternoon time frame? Big storm showing up in Evansville, Strong storms showing up in Lexington, Kentucky, up to Louisville, Cincinnati. And this kind of evolves into more of a compact, kind of consolidated, almost kind of a linear look, meaning a line of storms. And this is 4 or 5 p.m., right in the prime heating of the day. Some storms are moving right through southern areas of Indiana. These could produce damaging winds, large hail, and you got that 2% risk of a tornado, so you cannot ignore that. And you just continue, but just know, I'll go to the next time frame. You got some storms popping up just east of Atlanta, some storms coming off the foothills of North Carolina, storm right here in Virginia, storms down here, and to keep these going. And I would say these could potentially be their most intense around the 5 to 7 p.m. time frame. Storms blasting through Kentucky, central Kentucky, it looks like. Some powerful storms near the Nashville area where you do have that enhanced risk, the southern end of that. And I would say, if you're in the Cumberland Plateau, the hills of eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, getting into western areas of Virginia, I would say some big storms start to move in right as the sun is setting this evening. So could have a stormy evening. And we have to see that, is this what this looks like around 10 p.m. tonight? As these enter some higher elevations of the southern and central Alps? It's a big question. Okay, and then we get into the overnight hours, and this will try to cross the Alps. I'm praying for rain down here in Columbia, South Carolina, because our rain has been really weird this year in the Midlands of South Carolina. We either get 2 to 3 inches of rain, or we get nothing. And that 2 to 3 inches of rain we get any given day, that keeps us out of the drought category. But, I'd much rather have every few days a nice summer storm, maybe be dry a few days and another storm, but that is just not how the weather has been. I can count on one hand how many storms we've had here in Lexington, Columbia, South Carolina region. But anyways, off that, we wake up tomorrow morning or Monday morning. Who knows? We could have some clusters of storms kind of around this region right here, but we might not. I hate speaking on this with such low confidence, but confidence is low. NAM is picking up on the convection pretty well this morning. We continue to ride through it. It does not have this really holding together as it enters West Virginia and Virginia. We enter a lull kind of early afternoon. We could have some pop-up storms in North Carolina based off the NAM early this afternoon. But the NAM really likes the idea of kind of a line of storms screeching through, just like the HRRR model, kind of forming right as it moves out of Illinois into Indiana. And then we could have some powerful storms in southern Indiana, Evansville region, Paducah, getting close to the Mayfield region. Owensboro, I think there's a town in that region. I'm starting to memorize some of these names. I might say a borough or a ville when it's supposed to be the other way around, but starting to memorize some of these towns and things in these regions. But these start to get close to that region of like Louisville, Lexington, Kentucky, around 6 or 7 p.m. This would be a nasty line of storms right here screeching through Kentucky, and I would say my highest confidence of severe weather is in Kentucky. But you notice, not a whole lot's going on in Tennessee. This line of storms could be intense, sweeping across the entire state of Kentucky, getting into the eastern hills of Kentucky sometime as the sun's going down. And it's kind of the same similar evolution as the HRRR model, a little bit different, but it does show the same kind of deal where by the time the sun is setting, these reach the higher elevations and then cruises over those higher elevations of the southern and central Alps into the overnight hours. And, maybe we can get some rain down here on the eastern side and the southeastern side of the mountains. We'll see what happens here. But when you look at that FV3 model, okay, how much different does it look? And I'm not sure. I hadn't even looked. So, this is going to be new news to me too. But you look at this model and I can tell you it's not doing great with what's going on in northern Alabama. In fact, you look at what's going on in northern Alabama, there's no storms. So not doing that great at initializing the weather, but you move into Sunday afternoon. As we can already tell, we've already talked about Alabama. The storms are much more widespread, and they reach like the eastern areas of Kentucky a lot earlier in the afternoon compared to the other two models I just showed. But the storms are very widespread, and like Alabama, move into the Atlanta, Georgia region, northern Georgia, as early as late afternoon around dinner time. Very stormy in West Virginia, and does show some storms making their way into South Carolina, sometime late evening into the 10 to 11 p.m. time frame. So, what ends up being correct today, it's a big question. We even look at the Mid-Atlantic, which does have that slight risk too, and you look at the HRRR model. Does that area of storms hold together? Show some big storms in Pennsylvania too. Don't want to ignore you folks in Pennsylvania. This looks like a little supercell in PA, in central PA. So, just after lunchtime, the HRRR model wants to get quite stormy here in areas of central, eventually into eastern PA. It does have a cluster of storms moving through the Washington, D.C. area around 3 to 5 p.m. This moves into the Delmarva area. You've got any outdoor activities in Delaware, the coastal regions of Maryland. You could see some storms late afternoon, that 4 to 5, 6, 7 p.m. time frame. And then, we get into the evening time, and the storms are very scattered, very, very scattered. You got some storms up here in Ohio, Virginia, it's quite active. And how much of these storms really hold together here in central VA? This is midnight at this time frame. You got a cluster of storms moving over the mountainous regions. Do they hold together? Not quite sure. So it's a tricky forecast today, and I'm not trying to, I guess, protect my forecast by saying that, if you will, but it's very tricky. That's why I'm just showing you all this model guides. You look at the NAM today. It has a weird kind of lull by afternoon. Shows a more consolidated area of rain moving through northern PA, but shows some pop-up stronger storms maybe up into New Jersey, eastern PA, the central Maryland regions, maybe the eastern areas of North Carolina. Some big storms might move into the Delmarva region, but it shows kind of West Virginia area. Most of the area, pretty chill until you get into that overnight time frame, kind of that 11 midnight 1 a.m. time frame. It does show a stronger line of storms moving out of Kentucky into West Virginia around that midnight time frame. And you look at that FV3 model and you back it up, and I can tell you in this region it pretty much agrees with the other two models. Kind of shows early initiation of storms by late morning, early afternoon. Shows a little bit of a lull in the late afternoon, evening, and then shows some bigger storms moving through maybe as you get into the late evening time frame. We'll see what happens. Tricky area. Temperatures today, very hot, 90s, upper 90s, mid 90s. Some areas might squeeze in a 100-degree temperature. Heat indices, always a tricky word. Will probably be over 100 degrees by the time it's lunchtime in these regions. You go to the Carolinas. This will be your hottest day of the summer so far in the Carolinas. You'll probably get into the upper 90s. Heat index might get over 105, maybe 110 degrees in certain areas. They're going for the upper 90s here in the PD of South Carolina. Looks like the National Weather Service in Columbia is staying a little bit cooler. But you get in those higher elevations, the mountains, of course, you're going to be saved a little bit. But even Asheville is going to try to flirt with 90 degrees a day. But very hot temperatures expected today. The Northeast, you're dealing with rain this morning. Even as this rain moves northeast through Vermont, New Hampshire throughout the morning hours, and then eventually getting into southern Maine, you'll be greeted with more pop-up showers and storms. Very widespread. Anybody can see it. Anybody could miss. But it's going to be very widespread. We stop it here. It's around 5, 6, 7 p.m. The southern tier, the Finger Lakes, the upstate regions of New York, shower and storm activity in and around the New York City area. Some pop-up storms. Some of these could be strong to severe, produce some small hail, and very, very pop-up in nature. And by the time we get into the late evening hours, it could get quite stormy in the southern New England region, and it's still storming and heavy rain falling. Unlike the down east areas of Maine, you get into the overnight hours, you're still dealing with rain along that I-95 corridor in the upper portions of the Northeast. And here comes this low pressure, and this will start another round of just spinning showers and storms into this region as we wake up tomorrow morning. But, rainfall between now and the next 24 hours, 1 to 2 inches of rain, and additional 1 to 2 inches of rain are possible in areas of New York State. In western Mass, watch out. A lot of rain's falling right now. Central and southern Vermont, New Hampshire, areas of Connecticut, anywhere from an inch and a half of rain can fall. It's going to be, even when it's not raining, kind of cloudy. The sun might poke out some, but it's definitely going to be a rainy day in the Northeast, a very stormy day. So just a day to kind of chill out, maybe read a book or something. But the South Central U.S., pretty quiet. You guys have been kind of quiet for a while after being quite active, but some showers and storm activity could get going in New Mexico, and these could drift into western areas of Texas. eastern Colorado, panhandle of Oklahoma, western Kansas. These could hit severe limits. I mean, you do have that risk of some hail and wind, but I don't expect these to be a big deal today. You could have an upgrade to a slight risk, but you definitely could get some rain again, some showers and storms in extreme eastern areas of Colorado. Same thing with extreme western areas of Kansas, panhandle of Oklahoma, and then especially the panhandle of Texas. Some rain will probably make its way all the way to Amarillo later into this evening, and then it'll diminish with the loss of daytime heating. But not a big storyline today at all. The north central U.S., we had that spin that we're dealing with this morning, so you're dealing with rain in northern Illinois. This will continue to affect the Chicago region, southern Michigan, northern Indiana. I think you guys could see some storm activity, but you're on the along and north of that weak low pressure. So therefore, the thermodynamics don't meet the criteria for significant severe weather today. But you can't rule out a strong storm or two in northern Indiana, kind of northwest Ohio, southern sections of Michigan. You guys could get kind of stormy later this afternoon, this evening, but I'm not expecting anything too crazy. Ohio, you guys could be kind of stormy later this afternoon, this evening. Could be a stormy day for you folks. But, you look at the Storm Prediction Center for this region, and the severe threat isn't high unless you get into southern Ohio. But, I mean, the marginal risk does extend almost to areas of like Cleveland and northern Ohio. So some of these storms will definitely pack a punch today. Could have a line of storms in Cleveland as the sun is setting later this evening. So it will be quite stormy in Indiana, northern Indiana, really in Ohio and southern Michigan, but not expecting a lot of severe weather today. That could change, but as of now, not expecting it. The Rockies will roll through this about in 20, 30 seconds. Just not a lot going on, not a lot to speak on. Some showers are possible in the Rockies, even in eastern areas of Utah, but not a whole lot to speak on. As you get into the late night hours, you could get some showers, some heavier downpours possible in southern Montana. They could screech across the southern counties of Montana into the southeast portion of the state. And then you could wake up certainly to some rain in extreme eastern areas of Montana, western areas of North Dakota as you start your Monday. Temperatures very hot in the areas that's been pretty hot in the deep south. 90s, 100s in the deep south, south central U.S., cooling off substantially compared to where you've been at in areas of western Texas. Carolinas, one of your hottest days of the summer, will be today. Be much cooler in the northeast, maybe compared to yesterday, only 60s and 70s with this rain cold air. But you get down to New York City and New Jersey, it'll warm into the 80s, maybe even a 90-degree temperature. Just typical kind of summer heat along the Midwest. Warmer than average in the Dakotas, where temperatures will soar all the way to the low to mid 90s. Out west, you're certainly warming up. Not really any cooler than average anomalies, except if you're in these immediate Rockies regions. But it's starting to feel like the desert in areas of the desert Southwest, where temperatures are getting almost all the way up to 115 degrees in certain areas. Very hot in the Valley of California. Temperatures well into the 100s, and just your typical West type style heat out here is now returning. So stormy times ahead, guys. I don't think we're slowing down. I think we might get a break as far as the higher populated areas seeing high impact weather. But I mean, just because you're not highly populated doesn't mean you should be ignored. And we never do that on this channel, of course. But I think it could become quite active again in the southeast, the mid-Atlantic, where you have a slight risk from Philadelphia all the way to Columbia, South Carolina. Damaging winds, hail will be the biggest threat with this, but there is a low-end tornado risk. And then right here in areas of the high plains, the northern plains, you guys have a slight risk of severe weather. So we go to day 3, same thing. The shift's a little bit further southeast. Okay, this will be a severe weather threat, and we'll see if this increases to an enhanced risk. It very well could as confidence increases. Severe weather risk basically from northeast Colorado all the way to Lake Superior, Duluth region. Okay, Minneapolis. You guys are under the gun. Down to Omaha. Okay. Marginal risk, though, still up here where you got kind of a stalled out very weak front in this region. And another day of active summer type strong to severe storms across the deep south all the way up to the mid-Atlantic. And then, guys, we go to day 4. We got like a bimodal slight risk already at day 4 where they're thinking severe weather will be. This is shifting in general further south and further east. So now Chicago, Milwaukee, Illinois again, St. Louis, Des Moines, Springfield, Missouri. You guys, Kansas City, will once again be under the gun for severe weather. And then we even go to day 5, and it shifts back this way as another probably upper level low or shortwave trough swings through here. And right along those central high plains, another severe weather threat. So active times ahead, guys. We're not slowing down. Maybe it's just going to be like this the rest of the year. I've been talking to some buddies of mine how I think that it's just going to be a very weird second half of the year. Just got a feeling all the way into the start of winter. So we'll see what happens. God bless all y'all. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you soon.